Hi, Jerry here from Dr. J's Restoration RX, and today I'm going to install R-Blox Sound Deadener to the floorboard of this 1969 Chevy pickup. R-Blox is a foil-lined butyl layer that is about 70 thousandths thick and provides a heat barrier as well as sound deadening. You can purchase it by the linear foot or by a 50 or 100 foot roll. The roll is about 18 inches wide, so each linear foot is equal to 1.5 square feet. Figure out the approximate square footage of your project and order it accordingly. You can purchase R-Blox at the filling station or just go online to order at www.fillingstation.com. The application of R-Blox will help soften the road noise, and with the foil barrier, the cab will stay much more comfortable in hot or cold weather. Here are some of the items you will need to install the R-Blox. You may need a heat gun, especially if you are trying to apply it in colder temperatures. On a hot summer day, you may not need the heat gun, but it's a good idea to warm the R-Blox and the sheet metal for better adhesion. If you are applying it to a floorboard, the heating is not as important as if you are applying it to a vertical or overhead panels. The last thing you want is for it to fall off, so make sure to clean the surface before applying. R-Blox likes to adhere to clean, shiny, and smooth surfaces, so if you're trying to apply it to a panel that has a lot of overspray or is dirty, cleaning and heating will be very important. You will also want a pair of gloves, some wax and grease remover to clean the sheet metal before application, and some paper towels to clean the sheet metal after applying the wax and grease remover. You may want to pick up a roll of foil tape to tape the seams between the sections of the R-Blox sheets, but this is optional. This is a simple and straightforward procedure, but remember, as in most applications of this type, cleanliness is important, which is why we first use the wax and grease remover to clean the sheet metal. Before we get started, I found a couple of other items that you're going to have that I hadn't mentioned previously, and one of those items is a roller to roll the R-Blox onto the floor with and get a good contact. I've got a couple kinds here. I've got an aluminum wheeled roller that I made because the plastic one that was on it broke. So I just turned another aluminum wheel and put it onto the handle here. This is a common one that you can get at most any hardware store. It's just a wooden roller, and you can get these at like your Home Depots or that kind of place. It's basically a wallpaper roller, but you'll need one of those. And then the other thing that you're going to need is just a scrap piece of plywood. I've got one right here. Just something that you can cut the R-Blox on. I just put it on my table, lay the R-Blox down there, and just lay it across, and you can use your utility knife to cut it. And that was one other thing that you're going to need is a utility knife to cut the R-Blox. And get a few blades. This is the knife here. Get a few blades because they will dull out on you. And if they do, you just switch them around, and when they're good and dull or got a bunch of butyl on them, you can just switch them out. So we'll get started now. I've got to get the floor heated up with the heat gun. Once I get the floor heated up, I'll heat the R-Blox up a little bit. I'm going to cut some squares and get them ready to place in place, and we can get started laying it down on the floor. Before I start cleaning the floorboard of the truck, I just wanted to give you a look at this R-Blox a little bit closer up to kind of see what it's like. What we have here is a foil layer on top, and below that is the butyl liner. This is the one that's about 70 thousandths thick, and it's got a protective coating on the back so it doesn't get a bunch of junk on it before you're ready to apply it. So this is what we're going to put on the floorboard, and to do that we first need to clean the floorboard, so that's where we're going to go from here. First thing I'm going to do is just kind of blow off the floorboard so I get all the dust particles and everything out of the floor section before I start using the wax and grease remover. So I'll just give this a quick blowing just to get it fairly clean, and then we'll move on with the wax and grease remover. That done, we'll go on to the wax and grease remover. For the wax and grease remover, you want to have one towel that I use to apply the wax and grease remover, and then another couple more towels just to kind of wipe it off before you let it dry. So I'll just get this fairly good and soaked with this stuff. And we'll just give it a good rubbing. That should pretty much do it. So right now what I'm going to do is get in here and get the first piece laid out lengthwise. I'm just going to go from where the floor mat, just a little bit short of where the floor mat starts, all the way across the floor and back to where the gas tank is right in here. I'm not going to pull the gas tank out. It would be too much trouble to do that, and not that advantageous to get in behind there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut it up to this point, kind of where this seat belt retractor is right here. I'll cut it off there. I'm leaving the backing on until I'm ready to actually stick it down to the floor. So I'll get that cut, and then I'll peel this off, warm the floorboard up a little bit with the heat gun, peel off the backing, and then heat that butyl up a little bit so it gets good and stuck, and then we'll start putting it down. Okay, we're ready to put in the first piece, so I'm going to go ahead and use the heat gun here and get this floorboard warmed up a little bit. Once I get it to a nice warm temperature, I'll go ahead and heat up the butyl here. I'll peel this backing off here and just heat up the black side. Once it feels like it's good and tacky, I'll put it up in place and start sticking it to the floorboard. It's got enough flexibility to it to where it's not too bad to get around corners and stuff like that. Like this little hump here, we'll be able to cut that into place. There's going to be a little bit of trimming involved getting back to this area, so let's get started. Heating it up does a couple things. It helps with the adhesion of the R-Blox, but it also gets out any moisture that might be on the sheet metal. It helps to eliminate that moisture. Right now I'm just going to work on small sections at a time, working back. So I'll just heat a small section, get it stuck, then heat another section and on back. The one thing I forgot to do, which I'm going to do right now, is give it one more blast with the air to get out any stuff that may have got in here since I was here last. And then we'll get going on sticking it down. As I get this warm, you can feel it just gets really tacky. So you want to try to get this in place the first time. I know you're not going to be able to see this part where I'm doing the toe board, but I'm going to sit it up in here and just kind of lightly put it in place, because every time I put it down on sheet metal it wants to stick, which is a good thing. It's not as important on a floorboard as it is on a vertical panel, like I had mentioned before. But still, you want it to stay in place. I'm leaving it a little bit short of the kick panel and a little bit short of the toe board end, and that's mainly because I don't want it showing when the mat is down in place. I'm just going to stick her down. On this truck there are a couple of pins in place to hold the floor mat. There are holes in the floor mat, And these pins go into those, or the floor mat goes over those pins, and that helps to keep the floor mat up on the firewall. It's not impossible to take this stuff off, but I've noticed I'm missing a couple of little areas that are indented here, so I want to push those into the indented part. Pretty nice stuff. It tends to wrinkle a little bit, but you can pretty much work it into place. Now where these pins are, I'm going to grab my utility knife and just cut around those pins so that the floor mat will have a place to hook onto. It seems to be going down really nice right now so far. It wants to wrinkle a little bit, but I wouldn't worry about that. You can pull it back up and try to get those wrinkles out a little bit. Obviously, the less you pull up on it, the better it's going to be. Okay. Just kind of check to see how we're doing here. It looks pretty good here. May have to do some trimming down here, but maybe not. So I'm just going to roll this back. And then I'm going to start heating again both the floorboard and the R-Blox. That's pretty much it for this piece. I might stick a little strip right in here. Other than that, I can move on to the next section. And we'll just keep working across that way. This next area is going to be a little bit more difficult because it's got the hump in the floor to deal with. So I may decide to use just a small strip here and put a wider strip in here across the hump area. Might have to do a little patching in here and there, but we'll get it done. Now I got my second piece rough cut. I'm going to go ahead and do some more warming, both items, and start sticking it down again. I'm going to try to go ahead and conform this to the hump without cutting it, and we'll see how it goes. It does conform pretty well, but sometimes on something that drastic, it's a little bit hard to maneuver. Now I'm not trying to get the floorboard real hot. I'm just trying to get it to where the chill is off of it. Now this, I got it fairly warm. I can feel it, but it's not hot. So just try to get it to where the chill is off of it. Heat up your butyl a little bit, then we'll go ahead and get her started. This is going to be the tough part, is staying somewhat close to this first strip that I put down. So we'll start there and just see if I can get the thing to kind of conform here for me. It will stretch a little bit. Trying just to stay close to the seam there. Have to fold it back and get it into these corners before you stick it anywhere else. Now here I'm going to have a little bit of an area that I have to cut. Because it's going to want to overlap itself. I will go ahead and cut that. Right down to where it V's. Go ahead and stick that. And you just want to work across as you go. Okay, we got the R-Blox down in place, and we've taped all the seams. I'll just give you a quick close-up here. Project probably took, hour and a half to get in, but everything went smoothly. Now we've got a nice sound deadening barrier on the floorboard and toe pan, and things should sound pretty good inside there. Now that I have most of the cab floor covered with the R-Blox Sound Deadener, this truck should be a lot quieter riding down the road. I hope this video has helped clear up any questions regarding the R-Blox installation. You can purchase the R-Blox through the filling station, so if you're interested in making your Classic a little quieter cruising down the road, be sure to give the filling station a call or check it out on their online catalog at www.fillingstation.com. Thanks for watching, and check back for more tech videos from Dr. J's Restoration RX.